What's going on, everyone? Welcome to Movie Emporium's TV review of the Apple TV Plus original series, Severance Season 2. This will follow episode 2, which is called Goodbye, Miss Selvig, and of course is directed by Sam Donovan. Alright, so ladies and gentlemen, we finally have the kind of continuation of the season finale of Season 1. We finally get to see what happens to the Audis in this episode, where they continue how they got back to Severance, and of course in the first episode. And it answers a lot of questions that everybody had of exactly what happened in the leading time after, the incident with Marc, how he said Gemma was alive and so on and so forth. Bert, of course, Irving knocking on Bert's door. And I found this episode quite impactful. It's quite sad what really happens, because in the process of everything, the idea of how macro data refinement, how they affect the outside world, how Lumen kind of participates in the nature of how they're constantly watching them, how they can they're just not very good people, as we see from Helly herself, the outside Helly. We of course see other gentlemen who kind of are not the board, but are members of the speaking board and stuff like that. And we see the lengths they'll go to keep everyone in check, and how this company is not on the level, as we know from the first season. And I really like the fact that because of what this episode does, it doesn't allow the public viewing audience to wait on some of the answers being answered, like what exactly happened. And I really appreciate that, because, after watching this a second time, which I did because I want to be really kind of up to know on these episodes, it's really interesting thing to see. You start noticing things when you watch it again. You start realizing that there is a lot of depthness and level and levity to these individuals. They have lives outside of Lumen. They are much different people. And when they are affected by firings, and of course we see Irving, and of course we see Devin fired, and of course Helly's like the main person of, she's an Egan, so that really doesn't matter. It's really kind of it's a sad thing to see, because once Milchek goes out and talks to Devin, talks to Irving, fires them for stuff he claims they did in Lumen, which we know is not true. It really is sad. It's really interesting to see Devin try to get a job and try to, he's basically stressed out. He's angry at his wife. He is at loose ends. You can tell he's a completely different person. He has the mentality of an individual who has a lot of drive, but a lot of angst for where he is in life. When he goes to try to get a job at that door company, I love that interaction he has with that manager, or the hiring manager, because it shows that Devin is an individual that did things for his family, doesn't feel very satisfied with what he's doing. And when the guy kind of feels like Devin is part of who he could be, once Devin opens up about him being part of the severed floor, because there's this thing brought up about doors and stuff like that. There's some really good puns. I thought it was really funny. The fact that the hiring manager gets so angry at Devin, so dissatisfied, he's like, we'll call you if we feel like you're a good candidate. There is a level of sadness there, that these people are just trying to provide. He's just trying to provide for his family, and he picked the Severance job because he felt like it maybe that there is something that he could take away. He could feel different. He could feel, at ease, because you could tell he's very stressed. He's yelling at his wife on the phone. He doesn't listen to his wife when she says, no, we don't need any wipies or whatever. And I really love this sense of what Devin is just, he's a guy who's very atypical father, stressed out about life and trying to take care of the 3 kids. I think he has 3 kids or whatever. And it's the same thing with Irvin. Irvin is a individual who's very sad and lonely, and he feels like he has purpose when he's at Lumen. That's why he doesn't leave. He's very much a top tier employee at Lumen. I love the fact that, Milchek tells him he's a top tier employee, but Irving knows straight away that he's being fired. It makes him lose purpose. He also finds out about Bert, the map. Why was he at Bert's? Why was he banging on the door? We know why he was, but he doesn't know why he is. We see the black paintings and stuff like that of the elevator that, of course, Miss Casey went down, of Gemma went down. And I think it's really interesting to see him not really know what to do. He calls, I don't know who he calls, but he calls someone, And that's when we see Bert pull up and kind of look at, of course, of Irving. And you could kind of see where Bert's mindset is going, because he was literally there just having dinner with his husband. And this guy comes knocking that he's never seen before outside of Lumen and just like screaming Bert's name. And he has no idea why. So you could kind of see where that's going to lean if they go where they're going to go. And I thought that was really fascinating, and just shows you the level of like how much sadness there is with these individuals. They feel so much better at work than when they're out of work. And it's going to be interesting to see, like, you know, as we know what happened in the first episode, they eventually get brought back. But I also love the fact that for some reason, Marc is important to Lumen, is important to the Severance floor, and he's the only one that doesn't get fired. You know, Marc and his sister Devin and Rickon are trying to figure out what exactly is going on. Marc is getting really infuriated. He's upset. He like doesn't know what they were screaming about. Was it the baby? You know, was it Devin's trying to explain to him what the indie version of Marc said. And that's when, of course, Milchek pops up and he's like, we want you to come back. And I love how Marc is just so conflicted. He's so angry. Why he's like, why was Miss Cobell, why is Miss Selvig staying next to me? What was her purpose? And I love the fact that, you know, as we see later on when they bring back Patricia Arquette for this episode, there is a lot of underlining weirdness going on, because, you know, Helena explains to Harmony that, you know, we'll give you a job back at Lumen because you helped us stop the overtime protective or whatever, but we're going to give you a different job. You're not going to be on the Severance floor. That is now officially Milchek's position. And I love the level of like angriness and kind of crassness and stuff like that Patricia Arquette is presenting here, because she really wants to go back to the Severance floor to put everything back in perspective. And as we see, that's not going to work out. She's like, I'm going to think about it and all that good stuff. But leaning back into Marc, I love the fact that Devin and Marc are so at odds with what they're doing, because Marc is considering quitting, which he would. He's not like, why would I come back? And then all of a sudden he goes to launch at Pips with Devin, and they argue, and Marc's like, you know, why would you be more effective than I am by, you know, Gemma's death? And, you know, if Rickon were to die, I'd be sad, but I wouldn't be effective. I love the kind of argumentative nature and the fact that, you know, Devin is like, I care about what happened to your wife. I'm affected by it. I'm sad by it. Maybe you should go back. It's like a complete 180 of what she was saying, because of the simple fact of, you know, Gemma is now apparently at Lumen. You know, she's there. Why is she there? What happened to her? You know, find out what happened to her. And it's really sad to see that these two individuals who are so close are at odds with one another on what to do. And he claims he's going to quit. Of course, once Marc leaves in an anger, we see, of course, the guy who was talking to, of course, Harmony sitting there staring. He realizes what they have to do, because the whole idea is that, you know, they were bringing in new people to keep Marc on this situation. We'll talk about it in a second. And of course, it's not working, as we saw in the first episode. It's really nice to see that everything is just kind of not working to its extent. I love the fact that, you know, Milchek had to find people really quickly, and that's why Bob Balaban and, you know, Ali Shawkat, stuff like that were brought into the mix. He said he had 48 hours. He brought people from 5X, which they were like, 5X? That's really interesting. And I love that simple fact is like, okay, now we got a new mystery. What is 5X? Why was that closed down? And it leads into the simple fact that, you know, Bob Balaban and Alia Shawkat and the other gentleman, Stefano, but they don't seem to be big players. They seem to just be cameos, which, you know, is cool. Alia Shawkat and, of course, Bob Balaban are fantastic actors. But they were brought in because they needed a quick turnaround. And, of course, things are not going well. You could tell, you know, in the first episode, it was claimed it was 5 months. Clearly, it's not been 5 months. Clearly, it's been like 48 hours. Marc came back literally the next day or the day after. When the Severance crew comes back, the actual main cast, it's only been like 4 or 5 days. So it's not been very long. So it's, you know, it's the typical Lumen lying about everything. And I love the simple fact that they're just lying. They're just lying. They're just lying to Marc. But they brought him back. They brought him back for a specific project. This project is called Cold Harbor, which, like I said, if you notice at the very end of the first episode, the picture of Gemma, the really quick flash, says Cold Harbor. Seems like it's going to be very important. We'll see how it plays out, and I will go into more detail as we go later on. But just keep in mind Cold Harbor, because obviously they brought it in for a reason. I mean, there's not really that much mystery there. Like I said, it's the second episode they've announced about Cold Harbor. But I like the fact that, that's brought into the mix. Marc decides he's going to go back because he, as we saw in the first episode, he does. And I like the simple fact that we're not on the Severance floor for any of the episode outside of the video footage that Helena watches, where she watches her kiss Marc. So that should give you some insight about possibly who's on the Severance floor if she's kissing Marc. So, think about that for a second and what that could possibly mean. And she goes up on the floor, and that's when we get the, what happens on season 1. But I like the simple fact that we see everything outside of Lumen, everything outside of Severance. We see stuff in Severance. We see stuff on the management floor. We see Patricia Arquette's characters playing into the season. We see, of course, how Kier Egan gets pissed off at her daughter, at his daughter, because of what she says. She has to apologize to, I'm assuming, the board members, and I'm assuming to the the people who own the stock and stuff like that, the stockholders. And it's really fascinating because she has to go into apology mode and kind of make excuses. It's really what Lumen is known for, is just being excuse central. And, it really has a lot to say about what Lumen possibly is. It really leans into everything that happened outside. I love, Rickon's stuff where he's like, well, the guy really loved my book. And he's so very entitled to what everything is saying. And a lot of that stuff is happening, a lot of moving parts that were asked about. Once again, it's not been 5 months, it's been 3 days or 4 days or whatever it's been. The simple fact of Marc going back, and then his people coming back because they can't control Marc. And we listen to the audio from the first episode. We see that Helena has seen that she kisses Marc. We see the simple fact of I like how they removed Bob Balaban, who tore up his lease or whatever in Grand Rapids and had to go here and is now being let go. I like all that stuff. It's really fun. It's really cool. I like the opening, the new intro to the series. I like the fact that it kind of plays into what possibly is going on in this season. And I also like how eventually this season concludes, or this episode concludes. We see, of course, Cobell leaving because she's been told she has to leave, or she's leaving so that Marc can go on with his life. She's probably been prompted to leave. And I like the simple fact that she knows that he went back. She knows that, what's going on. She says something about pineapples, which is a really funny gag on the simple fact that she knows the next steps of what, of course, Lumen are doing. This is apparently a pre-planned thing to kind of coerce the people to come back. And he stops her in her tracks while she's driving off. And he's like, what do you know about, something about Gemma? And that's when she screams and bursts on her wheel and, drives off, almost hitting Marc. And that's where the episode ends. But I think I've hit all the points. I'm hoping I'm not missing anything because I watched this twice. But I think I've hit all the points of what I think happens in this episode. Because once again, the thing that people worry about with this series is it's going to be the same. And after 2 episodes, I think they've proven that possibly it isn't going to be the same. I mean, it's going to be the same in the simple fact of their mysteries and what is Lumen. They have to continue the mystery. But as we've seen in these first 2 episodes, they're not relying on their laurels, not relying on the same thing over and over and over. They're allowing these mysteries to be kind of explained, but also some new mysteries introduced. I love the idea of what is Cold Harbor. I was looking, as I watched the first time I watched through this movie or this episode, I was like, Cold Harbor. I looked it up and it doesn't really match anything because there is a thing called Cold Harbor, but it didn't really match what feels like after these first 2 episodes. So I was just like, whatever. But there's a reason they're calling it Cold Harbor. There's a reason they call it Severance. There's a reason they're calling it everything that they call in this season. And we'll find out later on, I'm sure, what's going on with Cold Harbor. But as far as this episode goes, it was fantastic. It really has emotional heart, and I feel that it works on an emotional level. So overall, I really like this episode. I think it's fantastic. I think everybody's great. I think it introduces some new interesting ideas and concepts, and it fulfills what happened after the end of the first episode. So with that said, that is going to be my take on the second episode of Severance Season 2, which is Goodbye, Miss Selvig. So I will give it a 9.5 out of 10. Once again, it's a great episode. So with that said, that'll be it. That'll be my take. Comments below, theories for you guys after episode 2. Let me know. What do you guys think of this episode? Otherwise, if you like what you see on the channel, hit the subscribe button to join Movie Emporium, hit that notification bell at the top to find what's coming in next. If you like the video, awesome, hit that like button. As always, we'll see you guys on the next video. Peace out, guys.